But how did you start your blog? And it seems that you've done really well. Like you've completely cut through.
And
Like
it's a bit. I started it, so it was originally I did sports journalism as my master's.
right,
Um, and I wanted for my dissertation to make her like because I love films, so I wanted to
yeah,
make her website where I just do film like sport film reviews.
hmm
Decided didn't want to do that anymore and like branch it out
hmm
basically. And so I've been doing this for like a year and a half ish. Which I'm kind of
mm
like, this is actually mad because I've got these people, don't know how I've got them, and like just like persistence basically.
mm.
And I've got like last year it got like 2,000 views last month. Got this
Amazing.
nearly like 2,000 views this month. So I'm trying to like monetize it. That's basically like
Yeah, go for it, go for it. And
uh,
that's why I saw it, and I thought because Elle sent it to me, and it's so often with this thing, everything gets filtered through publicity and
yeah,
publicists, and I've had publicists in the past, and I'm like talking to them at the moment, but it often feels like you're in the same channels as everyone else. I just am really impressed that you've created
thank you.
something off your own back,
Thank
and
you.
and honestly, post COVID, we're also comfortable on Zoom. Like we're auditioning on Zoom.
Nice. Yeah.
I travel and I tape. So you'll be surprised. Ask everyone. People
Yeah,
will do it.
I'm trying to like it's quite funny because like I've kind of honestly I kind of just as a whim did Gladiator 2 just as a oh might as
Mm,
well like never
mm,
know. Then obviously got it like my first
mm,
film junket because I want to become a film critic and I was like this is mad. I was like, huh?
mm,
What is
mm,
happening right now? Then
mm,
obviously, but then
mm.
I'm like, well, I obviously want to like start because I still like theatre and I still like TV, so I'll just branch out realistically to all of them and just
Yeah,
see how
yeah,
many
yeah,
we can
yeah.
basically get.
Well, if you've got your own thing and if you can start to make money, you can do whatever you want with it, which is great.
Yeah, thank you. I
Um,
really appreciate it.
awesome.
I
Uh,
just wanted to start off by saying, obviously, congratulations on the TV show. Brilliant. I absolutely loved it. And I
yeah,
thought
thank you.
newbie detective Charlie Pitts was a breath of fresh air. Um,
Mhm.
Missing You is obviously based on a Harlan Coben novel. Were you fan of the books beforehand?
I didn't honestly know the books beforehand. I was very aware of Harlan Coben, and I was conscious that these books were just huge. And but I hadn't read them. And when I came across the script, we obviously the world is completely different,
Yeah.
and yet what the showrunners and the producers have done, and Victoria as a writer has completely translated all of the most thrilling parts of this book and distilled them in a sort of northern town.
Yeah.
And I think from New York, and I think that's a really skillful thing. And so I'm no great adaptation works without great source material.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm very lucky to be stepping into that huge world. Um,
Also, how was it? How did you prepare for the role of Charlie Pitts, and was there anything unique about his character that attracted you to the part?
so I liked Charlie. I liked how he. Well, there's a line in the show that got cut because it felt like it was implied.
Okay.
And I apologized to Kat for looking up her history on the computer on my first day, which was a bit of a road move. And as we're walking towards the car that we think might help us find Rishi Magari, she says, "What are you doing here?" And I say, "Look, I want to help people. That's it."
Yeah.
And I like the idea that Charlie has this core motivation that he wants to do good in a very corrupt world of compromises and bribery and moral duplicity. And Charlie makes a go at holding the moral ground, and
Yeah.
I like that because it sets him up to fail constantly. And I love that within a week he's having an affair with his co-worker, and
It's actually
he's
brilliant, not gonna lie. It's actually like
it's a mad move, but I immediately I thought, you know what, stranger things have happened. People
Okay.
do crazy things, and they set up with really high moral standards, and then they're found to well, life has another way of leading things on. So I really like that part of Charlie, and I kept that sort of indignant moral core as a kind of guide throughout the show. Yeah.
Was there any particular word or sentence that Sean Spencer, the director, helped you with getting into the role of Charlie?
Yeah, so we had three directors, Sean, Nima, and Isha, and they were all really useful. I mean, there wasn't so much a word. There was just a sense that Charlie had a had a clear motivation to do the right thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't need money,
No.
so he can't really be bribed, which is useful in Harlan Coben's world. But he can't really be bribed, at least not by these kind of, not at this scale of criminal. And so he has the ability to be a good guy. And like I was saying, it's useful that we can slightly challenge that a bit and say, well, he loves the rules, but does he really follow them?
Yeah. Little bit of a rule breaker, a little bit. Just I'll
Yeah.
do my way.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of,
Let's call up the detective.
yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
don't really shouldn't do that, but
No, no. I mean, some of his behavior's outrageous. And I like that Charlie sits, you know, firmly in the system, thinking that he's going to be this capable detective. But I think he somehow thinks he's slightly above it all too. And I think that gives him a bit more room to be creative, and that allows him to step outside of the limitations that I found could be there from playing the kind of newbie detective.
yeah.
You know, I like that he was a bit surprising. You know, I don't think anyone saw that affair coming. And I really liked it. As soon as I heard about it, I thought, yes, and I just wanted more and more and more. So
yeah. How's your experience working with the cast and director? Was any like memorable moments on set?
oh yeah, I mean, we had a really fantastic time. I mean, I loved the world of the police station. We got to film that for 2 weeks in Stockport.
Nice.
We built that set, and it was you have to check the production designer's name, sorry for me, but it's stunning. Like, it's really stunning. Blame it on my jet lag. But I sitting in that world was really exciting, and most of that part for me was directed by Nima, and he's a very kind director, and he and Isha really steered this quite tumultuous story with a very even keel. So I was very fortunate with that, but we just had a lot of fun hanging out. We had a super grim little room for a green room. It was so grey, but then you step outside, and Stu, the sound guy, was playing music between takes because it was freezing, and we needed a way of keeping going. And so that we had this lovely soundtrack between it, which built this atmosphere. And there was a great sense of teamwork on this job. A lot of people have worked together before. There's an incredible industry in Manchester led by Key Street. And so I feel like I was just stepping into that, really. Much like Charlie Pitts, you know, sometimes as an actor, I think that's where there's a duality between myself and him. You're often just joining the set. Everyone's established a lot, and you've done your work with the director and maybe a couple of the actors, but really you're coming in and you're watching this world that's been created and seeing how you can play with it. And so I really like those scenes. And I would say I had such a laugh with Kath, who played Nia. She's so outrageously cheeky.
Okay.
And keeping a straight face with her doing the crisp scene was almost impossible.
How many takes did that have? Did you have to?
Oh, about 10.
About
probably.
10.
Yeah. And we were just led by Roz, who is an exceptional actor. She's an exceptional actor. She was incredibly generous, constantly playful. She came with a creative energy that you need on this show. She's in every scene almost, and she does an incredible job of driving the story, but also holding the emotional side of it. Yeah.
I think she's quite new-ish to the scene, like to the film industry, isn't she, as well? Kind of.
She is in this capacity. She's been, as soon as she left drama school, I think she rocketed in terms of the work that she's done. She's performed in, she's in Chekhov in the West End, and she worked at the National, I think. And
She's also a theatre kid.
yeah, so that's the same as me. But she went, she's done an awful lot of really excellent work. And Slow Horses is obviously a big ensemble show, but her parts become more and more prominent. This is obviously a big kind of release for her. And so it was fun to be a part of that for her and know that so many people were going to be watching Roz/Kat's journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it strange playing a role with the same name as you? I've always
Yeah, it's quite confusing.
Isn't it? Yeah, I thought so.
The challenge is to be careful how much of you slips in. And I find it really useful to bring a lot of myself to a role, especially when there are a lot of big high stakes and I've got to transfer a lot of information. I think the challenge was to work out a way of doing that creatively in a human way rather than giving information. It was like attempting to stay true to this character's little life. And sometimes it's useful to bring your own world in, and sometimes it can be a bit too safe. In this case, I found it quite useful. I found myself very familiar with Charlie. I think I'm probably fairly similar in that I like things done the right way. And my parents called me the health and safety officer when I was a little kid. And Charlie has some of those attributes. So I found myself bringing those in. But, Charlie's described as a tech whiz. I am capable, but I'm not a brilliant coder or anything like that. So I think that way of processing the world is slightly different. So the nominative determinism can act as a good pulling force and also be something you have to push against a
bit. When did your love of acting start, and did you always want to be an actor, or was it like a slow burner?
It was since I was a kid. I always loved doing it. For a while, I wanted to do a law degree for a while. I was really interested in becoming a lawyer, and I did a sort of mini pupillage in Temple Gardens, and I wonder if I wanted to perform as a lawyer maybe more than I wanted to do the work. But yeah. I really enjoyed learning about case law. But at the same time as that, I was always acting. I have done since I was a little kid, since Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and
that was mine as well. To be fair,
was that your first one?
I've never really done acting, that sort of stuff. But my first school play was Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. I think it's everyone's, isn't it?
Everyone, yeah. I mean, it's great because there's so many parts, and if all else fails, people can play colours. And I think there's something about. I grew up in Stratford-upon-Avon, and I had I was about 5 minutes away from the RSC. My mum and dad worked in the theatre. I grew up in Essex, and my parents were working in the Palace Theatre. And I don't know, you're sat around watching all these actors who you think are just so cool when you're younger, and I think I found myself always intrigued by being an actor. I loved language, and then when I was growing up and going to school, I was lucky enough to join the RSC in some capacity, and I played loads of the Prince roles right up until the age of about 17. Sorry, it was just a flash. And I got to watch Jonathan Slinger and Katie Stevens up close, and Clive Wood, and I learnt so much. And Joe Milson, who played the bastard in King John, and I got directed by all of these extraordinary actors, and I got taught voice by Cicely Berry. And so I had this really unique experience for a number of years, being able to dip my toe in what it might be like to be a professional actor. And then with my parents in the industry, it felt like, it's hard to know sometimes whether it's I purposely wanted to do it, but it was always around me. And growing up in Stratford, it's hard not to feel like that.
No, because obviously it's Shakespeare is from there.
He's from Stratford-on-Avon.
So
Yeah.
obviously it's all like
His mum was
really
from
tough.
my village, Mary Arden. And yeah, it's hard to separate yourself from it. And those periods of time I was leaving school early, or I'd get given a couple of days off from school from playing rugby and football, and then I'd get to go to Newcastle to perform in Newcastle, and I got to go to the Roundhouse to perform. And so I had this amazing education in language, what voice can do, how to hold yourself on stage. All of these really gifted technical actors, some of them aren't movie stars, but they are some of the best actors working in the UK, who were working, especially during Michael Boyd's tenure, who's sadly passed away. But these people had an impact on me, and they were the people who I thought, well, this is what acting is, you know, this is what maybe, and it was so exciting. There was swords and people rappelling from the ceiling in Henry V, and I had a lot of fun doing that. And inevitably I would play a kid who died, but you know, I was slightly living in the imaginative world of what it is to be in these great Shakespeare shows.
And then was that your first professional job?
Yeah, well, I would say so. I did that up until the age of 16. My first professional job at 18, I worked in Trevor Nunn's company for about a year, in the West End, and so that felt like a bit of a transition. And I think my life has been a constant sequence of transitions and changes. But yeah, I was still very young, but I was an adult in London and working in the West End, and that was extraordinary.
Were you nervous at all?
I think I was too young to feel too nervous. I mean, I was just really excited. It wasn't a question of when I would become an actor, but I wondered when. I wondered if I would go to university first, or maybe I'd try and be a lawyer for a bit. But I was never nervous of it. I think nerves is something that I've started to deal with as I've got a little bit older, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because it makes you more aware of yourself, maybe, and as long as you can move through it. But no, I was just really excited to get going and be part of this world. Yeah.
Who are some of the acting standout actors that you've worked with, and what did you learn from them?
So when I was a kid, I worked with Jonathan Slinger. I thought what he did with Richard III, I'll never forget it. It's almost like imprinted in my DNA or in the grooves of my sort of subconscious, because he was so creative with the text in a way that I just didn't know people could be. And as Richard III, so evil, so human. And that combination was amazing. When I was growing up in Stratford, I got to watch a lot of David Tennant, and then I worked with him in Around the World in 80 Days, and that was a real pinch me moment, because again, one of those people I've really admired for an incredibly long time. Let me think. There are so many people I've worked with who I admire, and you know, I'd really say Roz is right up there with all of them. What she's done in Missing You, I think, is no easy task, and she's just got chops. She can really do it.
Are you gonna watch the Jonathan Bailey Richard III coming?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
You've got a unique little theatre kid as well before coming back into theatre now. So you've done film a bit, like.
Yeah, I mean, I love both equally, theatre and film, and I like to return to it as much as possible. I've mainly been filming for the last few years, and recently I've been performing in a show called it's called As I Went Out One Summer. It's called Laurie Lee in Words and Music, and I take this Laurie Lee and with this actor called Anton Lesser from Game of Thrones, and we perform Laurie Lee's words with this orchestra. called the Orchestra of the Swan, and I've loved getting back into the theatre, and I think it will always be firmly rooted in my identity as an actor. I think it's the way I feel very strongly about it being something people should all try and everybody should try and do as an actor. I think you just so exposing, and it it tests you in ways that in different ways to film and TV. And I'm lucky that I got to start doing it. I think that it was able to have that imprint on me at early days.
Yeah. Is there any different? Do you use different techniques working in theatre and working on screen? Is there like any like significant?
Yeah, you've got an audience. I think that's the one thing that I try not to think about it too much in preparation, but inevitably there's a fourth wall in both sets of medium, one behind a screen and one at the end of the stage. I think that, a lot of the actors that I really admire know how to be with an audience, even if it's unconscious. Their just awareness of their craft, stage craft, is different. When you're filming, there's so many people who are telling the story. There's designers who put you in costumes that completely change what your character's like. And Kobe Yates did a really great job on this one. In Missing You, there's a cinematographer, and we were really lucky on Missing You to have two great cinematographers. My role in that is to be in the space and to play the truth of the scene. I feel like they do an incredible job of capturing that, of capturing the performance. And whereas on stage, to a degree, there could be a very much higher effects. There is less, basically, between you and an audience, and you are doing more of the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you relax between takes and intervals in the theatre?
Well, I love climbing.
Nice.
My friend, who's an actor, Jamie, we climb a lot together.
Is it bouldering, or is it actually with a rope?
We do both. Yeah. It's something I got into last year, and I found that really quite rooting, ironically. And I really enjoy doing that. I also I have another side of my brain. I have a business with my brother.
Nice.
Called Crafty Boys, which is the cap I'm wearing, and that's been going for about 5 years. I think it started out of lockdown, so I've been very lucky to grow that through these last few years with him and our family, and a lot of my best friends have come through that. So I love acting. I love being on sets, and I also really love stepping away from it and engaging in my life. And I find that that's a really great way of giving me space to return to it. You just don't know what you're picking up and what you might bring to your work. So it's kind of one of the lucky parts of being an actor, is that you do kind of have to live a life, and you inevitably will, but it's useful to try new things.
I've done boxing for like a year and a half now.
Wow. Have you found that really transformational? Really? Yeah.
Because I've done obviously sports my whole entire life, like hockey and tennis and stuff, and then kind of fell out of love with it and trying to need a new sport. So I did climbing for a bit, but then found out that I was scared of heights, and I was like,
yeah, well, me too. I was terrified of heights. It's good to do things that scare you, though.
True.
It's really good, but sometimes it's good to find the thing that you really enjoy.
Yeah.
And you're going to do for a long time. Yeah.
And then I obviously found boxing, and then somehow got like another interview from it, and I was like, this is mad. And then I've also made friends from boxing as well, which I didn't expect. So when actually like meeting new people, I can become quite shy. So meeting new people is quite difficult for me. But
wow, you've chosen a crazy thing to do.
I know, honestly, me just interviewing strangers, like actors, and like I'm like, what am I doing right now?
Yeah.
But I wind it up, so it's like I was on BBC there's a show called Show Trial.
Yes.
Yeah, so I interviewed the director for season 2 last week.
Great.
And me and her, we were like, we don't like being on screen. We like being behind the camera.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
quite funny, sort of.
But you have a love of something, right? You like seem to love theatre and film, and so you're gonna have to step into that
Yeah.
uncomfortable place. And I'd say, yeah, I understand that. There are times I want to be very, very quiet, and I think um, outside of my outside of being on set or in a rehearsal room, I'm pretty quiet, and people who know me would be very surprised at that. Yeah.
And just like finally, what projects do you have lined up? Do you have any like theatre or?
Yeah, so I'm performing this show, which we've been doing for a couple of years now, Laurie Lee and Words and Music. Um, and it's a really beautiful show. And Anton Lesser's one of the great readers of who's working now. He's been doing it, for 30 years. He's been just brilliant. And so I'm very lucky to be doing that with him. It's it's Missing You has been such a fantastic kind of success. It's really exciting to start the year with a show coming out like that. And so we'll see what the year holds, really.
You're honestly going to do you're probably going to get so many. I reckon you're going to get more like feature films, I reckon, from it.
Oh,
That's
I like the idea of that. I would love to do. I would love. I'm you know I'm film is one of my biggest loves, and I haven't really been in a lot of films, and I think I love the form and a lot of the directors. I love, I love it so much, and so I think that's something that I would love to do more of. But you never know what's going to come your way, and so in a way that's quite exciting. It's also totally terrifying. Yeah.